On behalf of Veronica and the Dog Biz team, I want to welcome you to Coronavirus Response for Dog Pros. Thank you all for being here and for coming together as a community to support each other. As I said before we got started, as dog pros, we all have one shared common goal, and that's to help dogs. So that's the spirit that we're having this conversation tonight. And we hope we can help support you as you face these difficult business challenges throughout this crisis. This won't be the last time that you hear from the Dog Walking Academy or Dog Biz. We'll be offering some other things for you. We'll talk about those at the end of our meeting tonight. But I also just don't want to forget to remind you that if you like and follow the Dog Walking Academy page on Facebook, that's where you'll get the most current updates on the resources that we have available to you. There are a few of you on the call tonight who may not be familiar with the Dog Walking Academy. You can find out more information about that at dogbizsuccess.com. But I do want to just give you a quick rundown in case you don't know those of us who are talking at you tonight. First up, Veronica Baltel. She'll give you a wave. I think, there we go. She is the founder and mastermind of Dog Biz and the Dog Walking Academy, as well as an instructor of the Dog Walking Academy. In addition to running the company for the last 17 years, Veronica works with dog professionals around the world, and she just might be the best diplomat and cheerleader I know. So thank you for being here with us tonight, Veronica. And also with us is Josh Baltel. He is co-instructor for the San Francisco and Oakland Dog Walking Academies, and he's an instructor for the online Dog Walking Academy. Some of you may have also run into him on our Instagram or Facebook pages because he does a lot of social media work for us as well. So thanks, Josh, for being here this evening. If you're wondering who I am, I'm Gina Ferris, and I have the privilege of working with this amazing team, also with working with some of you through consulting, in addition to a few other things that I do, like serve as director of the Dog Biz University. So that's us, a little bit about us, but let's go ahead and get started. We have a roadmap for tonight's discussion. But we really want to hear what concerns you have today and what questions that you have. We're going to try to get to those as many of those as possible. To help us do that, please post those over in the chat, either questions or topics you'd like us to cover, and we'll try to make sure we're tailoring this conversation to the needs and your concerns tonight. While you're doing that, we will go ahead and get started with some of the most common questions that we've been getting from clients. And then just before that, though, the very next thing I want to do is to give the floor to Veronica and to just say that as we're going through this crisis, it's now time for us to shift our focus from what services we provide to begin thinking about what are our clients' needs and how can we help. And that's really going to be the framework for our conversation tonight. But before we get started, I noticed that we have several people on the call tonight from San Francisco and the Bay Area. Veronica wanted to give you a bit of an update. Just a reminder though, stay in contact with your local health services. If you are not in the San Francisco Bay Area, this next section you might want to pay attention to because they do have a shelter-in-place order. Some of you do not yet, but I won't be surprised if some other cities follow suit very closely. Starting to see some here in the East Coast, and they may borrow from the language that's in the current shelter-in-place order in the Bay Area. So it applies specifically to Bay Area, but it probably will apply to all of us before too long. So with that, Veronica, will you bring us up to date on where we are at?
Yeah, thank you so much for setting our groundwork here today, Gina, and kind of keeping us all organized. That is one of Gina's main skills, I must say. So there's been a lot of confusion in the Bay Area, the San Francisco Bay Area, about what shelter in place specifically means for dog walkers. The language around it has been a little bit vague enough to leave open to quite a bit of different levels of interpretation. So I spent a number of hours yesterday hunting down answers, calling all sorts of government agencies and offices, and chatting with a lot of different people. And in the end, the information that we were able to gather is the following. That the language in the mandate referring to outdoor activities such as hiking is specific to individuals, not businesses. That dog owners should walk their dogs within a 1-block radius of their homes or take them to a trail, park, or other open space where they can practice social distancing. That professional dog walking is not deemed an essential service, and that dog walking businesses are being asked to suspend service. The issue of concern is the cross-contamination between households, between client households, and also between those of walkers and clients. And that what they did say, however, is that professional dog walkers may make what they're terming careful exceptions on a case-by-case basis under the services for essential services clause. In other words, if your clients are essential workers like medical or emergency personnel who are working long shifts, that you can make the choice to continue serving them, that if you do so, and of course, if you are in an area where shelter in place is not in effect at the moment and you are continuing to walk, you'll of course want to do so with the utmost of care to follow all of the safety guidelines. We recommend that you take a look at CDC for that. Center for Disease Control. They have a whole list of guidelines there that are very specific about how we can all help to keep from spreading the disease. A couple that I do want to add to that list that are very dog walking specific, we're recommending that if you don't already, that you use your own equipment so that you aren't handling leashes that your clients are handling and vice versa. So use your own equipment. Also, if you are in a shelter-in-place situation or in a situation where your clients just happen to work from home, that sort of thing, in order to maintain social distancing, then what you'll want to do is ask clients who are home not to greet you at the door. The dog knows to come and get you anyway, right? They know when you're there, they're going to run to the door for you. Ask clients to stay in another part of the house so that you can go ahead, use your own leashes, leash the dogs up, and take them out without that person-to-person interaction. So just a couple of things you can add on to the CDC's recommendations. To echo what Gina said, regardless of where you are, and it was amazing to see all of the different locations that you typed into the chat pod, regardless of where you are, the point here is to pay really close attention to your local authorities for mandates and guidelines. And also to please be listening to the national recommendations. Some of you, like those of you who are in the Bay Area, are under mandate, and many of us are not, but we still want to be thinking about making the best decisions that we can, the most responsible decisions we can to protect our communities. And so to just be acting and to be keeping a daily tag on what you're being asked to do and to follow that to the best of your ability. Let's see, Gina, is there anything else we want to make sure that we add on to that? And I see that Gina's been putting, she put in the link for the CDC in the chat pod for you so that you can take a look there. Erica asked if it's okay to share what I wrote on the Dog Walking Academy grad page about what we learned about the Bay Area. Yes, absolutely. Thank you for asking. We can absolutely get that out there.
Yeah, I think that's all we had on the San Francisco Bay.
Some of you are reaching out to ask us specifically what we should do. I'm going to stop short of saying this is what you should do because I don't have the authority to do that. What I can do is give you the absolute best information that I'm able to get hold of and to encourage you then to act as carefully and responsibly in response to that as you can. So if you are in the Bay Area, in the San Francisco Bay Area, what we're being told as we reached out yesterday to authorities is that the mandate that dog walking is not considered an essential service, and that dog walking companies are expected to suspend services during shelter in place. So that's what was shared with me, and what I can relay to you.
And for those of you in Pennsylvania, we have not contacted authorities there yet, but their mandate was pretty clear. All non-life sustaining activities are to be suspended. So we probably won't follow up with them because that looked like a pretty clear mandate.
Yeah, we had to do a lot of research in the San Francisco area because there was so much gray area in the language, and the ultimately the folks that I talked to, and I finally, after a couple of hours, figured out exactly who I should be talking to. The folks there, they agreed. I mean, that yes, the language was very vague and left a lot open to interpretation, but that was how they were interpreting the mandate.
Okay, so let's move along then. I think we were going to talk a little bit, give them some tips for communicating with clients at this point in time.
Yeah, so one of the things that that you'll want to be thinking about, both in terms of if you are in a situation right now where you're already suspending services or getting ready to do so, or if you're in an area where that's not mandated yet, but you're just sort of thinking ahead about what may be coming, and also thinking as well too, just to add a little bit to that, as you're thinking about these things in areas outside of shelter-in-place mandates, I would really encourage you to think about your specific clients too, and to take particular care in making decisions about serving people who are in higher risk populations as well. And so I think that's really important too, because this isn't just about following the letter of the law. It's about following the spirit of the law, which is also wrapped up in not just legal issues, but the ethical piece here, and making sure that we're doing the very best that we each individually can to bring a close to this as quickly as possible, because of course the more we all pull together to do that, the faster we get to the other side of this too. Okay, so in terms of communicating to clients, in terms of thinking then about, wow, all right, if I have suspended services, if I end up needing to suspend services, if I choose to suspend services, what else what do we do through this, and how do we talk to clients, and what do we do for them? And so one of the things that I want you to think about is to stop and think for a minute. Just take a really deep breath and think about, why did your clients hire you in the first place? Why do people use dog walkers, right? And I know a few of you here are probably doing daycare as well. Why do people do that? Why are people hiring others to exercise their dogs? Well, first of all, to get them exercise. And why? Well, for one thing, to come home to an easier dog, right? To have a dog who is easier to live with. Also because people hire us because they want to assuage their own guilt. They want to make sure that they're providing for their dog's daily quality of life when they're not able to themselves, and just because they love their dogs, right? And that's one thing we all have in common. And also to get something off their plate, right? To make life easier in that way too, that there's some piece of responsibility that somebody else has got for them, that you've got the dog taken care of. Those issues, the need for a calm, well-behaved dog, the need to provide for their dog's needs, and the need to take some stress, worry, obligation, responsibility off their plates, that's not going away during this crisis. In some ways, for a lot of your clients, those needs are actually going to be deeper, right? You think about clients who are in shelter in place, they're now home with the dog who's not getting exercise, and we all know how a lack of exercise impacts dog behavior. Many of them are also home, both in mandated and non-mandated areas. There are a lot of people, Gina can attest to this, who are home trying to deal with kids who are suddenly at home online schooling, right? So they're now juggling the dog and the kids. Some of your clients are probably also helping elderly relatives. A lot of them are working from home. And we're all dealing with a whole extra load of stress. So they still need you, even if you can't walk their dogs. And so part of this too is stepping outside and thinking, how can I be helpful? Right? Gina asked that earlier. Stepping outside of our own stress and our own, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Thoughts, and saying, what can we do for our clients? How can we still continue to serve them and provide the benefits that they came to us for in the first place? As dog walkers, we don't have a lot of options for this, unless there's some really creative ideas you're going to blow the chat pot up with that we haven't thought of yet. Fingers crossed. But there are some things that you can be doing. Here are some ideas. Think about ways that you can help your clients make sure that the dogs are gainfully occupied, are either getting physical exercise or getting mental enrichment to keep them calm and happy, right? Dogs go stir crazy just like we do. It can be simple things like once a week or even daily email newsletter tips with great ideas for games you can play in the house or in the yard with your dog, or mental enrichment games and toys and activities. There are tons of amazing websites out there with incredible ideas for homemade enrichment toys and that sort of thing. You can also videos. Put videos together, show yourself doing something with your dog. Here's what I'm doing to keep my dog occupied. Here's what you can do today. Or here's my tip for the week. You can take things even a little bit farther and think about putting together some sort of activity boxes that you mail to your clients once a week. Here are some things to keep your dog happy and occupied. You could even think about using a platform like what we're using here, Zoom, and offering to get together with your clients for a half an hour each day, live all together for guided exercise with the dogs, or to show how to build a particular enrichment toy. A time for people to take a break from the stress, play with their dog, be around other dog people who are doing the same thing. In other words, just starting to think outside the box a little bit about how you can still provide the same kind of service benefit, even if you can't provide the service in the same way that we normally do.
And for those of you who like kids, or like working with kids, or have some experience with kids, this could be guided exercises with the kids and their dogs. You could not only teach them some games, but you could have them get some materials ahead of time and do some building projects of some of those toys with the kids. I'm telling you, if you can keep the dog and the kid busy for 30 minutes, moms will be so happy.
And the thing is, you're keeping them busy for 30 minutes, and then it has this ripple effect too, right? That the dogs are then calmer thereafter as well. So yeah, I love that. Yeah, get the kids involved too. I think that's fantastic. So just thinking a little bit, outside the box in these sorts of ways. One of the reasons there are a number of reasons I want you to consider doing something like this. One is because it gives you something to do, which is going to feel better than just sitting and waiting this through. One of them is because it provides for your clients and their dogs, which is what we're all in here, what we're all in this for in the first place. But also because it gives you a potential way to try to protect some of your revenue too. That one of the things that you can do is to step forward to your clients and say, I know how hard this is. We are all in this together. I know what kind of stress you're under and the kinds of things that you might be facing. I want to find a way to make sure that I continue to serve you through this time. Here's what I'm going to do. And then you can say to your clients, if you are not being financially impacted by this crisis and you are able to continue to pay your monthly fees for this service, I'm deeply grateful. If you are somewhat impacted by this and you're able to continue to pay reduced fees, I'm equally grateful. And for those of you, my clients who have, who are suffering financial hardship because of this, I want you to participate anyway, free of charge, because we're all in this together, right? So you're modeling that behavior that you're hoping to get from your clients too. I have to tell you, one of the one of the real bright points in the last few days, which have not been terribly bright, one of the few real bright points that I've seen are a number of people sharing both on our grad Facebook group and in private emails to me, that how many of their clients have stepped forward without even being asked to say, hey, I still have an income and I'm going to continue to pay you because I want you to be there when all this is over. And I'm so grateful for everything that you've done for me and my dog up to this point. And it says so much about how much people value what you all do. And it says an awful lot about how well you do it too, that people are willing to do that. And so this is one way that you can try to protect some of your income during this time. Gina, do you have anything that you'd like to add to that?
No, I just think it's always great to practice gratitude. And also just to say that these ideas that we're talking about are ways to stay connected with your communities, which is so important. It's going to be so important when you're ready to restart your business and get them up and going. If they're in a holding pattern right now, the way to do that faster is to not have lost touch with your clients to begin with. So this community building, supporting each other, supporting your clients is going to be really key to helping getting back on your feet faster. Yeah.
Kelly just mentioned in the chat pod that she had 3 clients step forward last week to offer to pay during that time. It's a wonderful thing. There's also a great suggestion in here about one of the things that people might do with their clients is look at things like meditation and relaxation with the dogs, things like that too, right? I mean, because as dog walkers, given that our focus is exercise, the first thing to think about is how can we get the dogs revved up, right? How can we play tug of war and hide and seek games and all these sorts of things. But yeah, I love that there's real value too in calming moments. Yeah, so that's fantastic. Oh, there's another one who's had, Julia says she's had clients offer to keep paying too. Yeah, it is. It is very humbling. And it's humbling. And in some ways though, I want you to stop and really pat yourselves on the back because your clients are doing that because you're awesome, because you've provided amazing service and you've, created that strong bond and rapport with them. So, to know that you created that situation and you deserve it. Okay. Okay, I'm so sorry. Yeah, so we're seeing all sorts of in the chat pod if you all are paying attention to people tipping forward these kinds of stories. Yeah, it really is heartwarming. Yeah.
So one of the next things, I think we're ready to move on now. We were going to talk a little bit about reviewing policies, cancellations, payment, that kind of thing. Veronica, that leads in.
Yeah, so those of you who are Dog Walking Academy grads, and those of you who have ever worked with us through consulting or taken Dog Biz University classes, things like that, know that we are real sticklers for strong policies that are very consistently enforced. This is one of those very few exceptions where you're going to want to be flexible with your policies, right? Because part of this is about surviving the immediate issue and the immediate revenue loss, but a huge part of this is about coming out the other side and in as strong a position as you possibly can to rebuild your business. And that is dependent on relationships, right? Everything in this industry is dependent on relationships, and taking the best possible care you can of your clients right now means that they're going to be there for you and to be able to come back with you afterward. And so I do think that this is a place where, where in situations where you're normally going to have strict cancellation policies, you're going to be more flexible here. That's very important. And speaking of relationships as well, actually, I'll get to that when we talk about marketing through this. Is there anything else that you wanted to cover in policies, Gina, or any questions people have that maybe I've missed in the chat pod about that?
Yeah, I haven't seen. We've got some people who are talking a little bit about discounting services if they are still offering services. Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, that's a great question. My recommendation in general is that you don't, but it may be that you look at this sort of on sort of on a sliding scale level, right? So the language I was using earlier, where you're asking your clients, you're saying, hey, I'm going to switch to this different style of service, and you're asking them to pay in full the way they normally would if they can, to pay a reduced fee if that's all that they can do, or continuing to offer the service if they're in a financial hardship anyway. And so in those sorts of situations, I probably wouldn't. If you are continuing to actually walk, then again, in most cases, no, but you're going to have to kind of take it case by case. I mean, as this deepens and as people begin to hit more financial hardship, it may be that you start to make case by case situations for your clients as a way to bring them through with you. But I wouldn't proactively just go out and cut your rates. Don't do that. But you can absolutely respond to individual clients' needs. I think that's very reasonable in a situation like this.
And it is the beauty of having our own businesses, right? Is when things happen that are outside the norm, we can make exceptions to policies, and if needed. Along those lines a little bit, there's a great comment from Julia that for those who do boarding or house sitting along with walking, and they have a non-refundable booking fee, should we offer to credit that towards a future trip? And that is a great way, particularly right now when having cash is really concerning and at an all-time low for some of you. This is a good way to encourage people to go ahead and pay for a service that they know they're going to use, just not sure when they can use it yet. That's something that clients could do now that will help sustain the business for you.
Yeah.
Okay. Other questions along that? Okay, I think that's all we had on, that's all I'm seeing on rates. So we can move on, talk a little bit about preparing for the recovery now.
Yeah. So a couple of things as you're thinking about, thinking future, because again, even right now, I think we're so focused on how do we get through this right this minute, but I want you to lift your gaze up a little bit and start thinking down the line, to start thinking about what happens when this passes. And we don't know how long it's going to be, right? We don't know how long, this period of kind of, I hate to use the term, but new normal is going to last, and we don't know how much it's going to shift and whatnot. And so one of the things I want you to really be thinking about right now is, what do things look like when you get through? Part of that is taking really good care of your clients right now. Part of that is also taking really good care of your referral relationships, staying in contact, reaching out and asking them if there's anything you can do for them, just being present. And this is, in some ways, I think probably going to sound a little crazy, and in some ways it won't, because again, any of you who know us at all will not be surprised to hear me now switch and start talking about marketing. One of the things that happens in our industry so much is that we tend to think about marketing as, well, I know I should do it, and it's something I'll do when I have more time. I'll do it when I have time. The time is right now. Right? Especially those of you who are sheltered in place or who are experiencing a lot of cancellations, you have time in your schedule right now. And this is the time to use it to work on the strength of your business. One of the things to remember about marketing is that the marketing that you do right now is for clients down the line. That's the case even when we're not in a crazy situation like this. Marketing has a delayed impact. And so I don't want you to wait until we pull out of this to start marketing again. I want you to do it right now. Even though, and even in places where you can't take on dog walking clients now, you can still be doing marketing to raise awareness of your services. To raise awareness of your existence and your services. You can do things like sharing what it is you're doing for clients during this time. um, and sharing the kind of content that you're sharing with your client, sharing enrichment ideas and ways to keep your dogs exercised and occupied at home, and things like that, so that people are aware of you. You can imagine, as we're all sitting in this together, looking at that kind of marketing and thinking, wow, what an amazing company that they're doing that for their clients. How amazing that they're spending their time sharing this information with the community, right? So even if you're in an area where it doesn't make sense to be asking people to hire a dog walker right now, you can still be out there letting people know who you are. And if you are doing things, if you are providing the kinds of alternative services we've talked about, you can market those too, right? Hey, you think about, being sheltered in place, for example, are you and the dog going stir crazy? Right? Here's what we're doing for dogs and their people during this time, and to bring because remember, not everyone is losing their income. There are a lot of people out there who are working from home who have the same income and are now stuck at home with their dogs and their kids and trying to still get the hours in, etc. So you can think about marketing, around those kinds of messages as well.
Yeah, Veronica, Joe just mentioned that he was just getting started and working on his website, and he's rethinking his marketing message. What should his marketing message be now? So can you talk a little bit, you and I have talked offline, but can you talk a little bit about those marketing message turning into a we're all in this together, and some of those marketing messages that they might start using?
Yeah, I think that you think about the typical dog walking website before all this happens, right? And we're talking about, hey, you're so busy, you've got a long commute and you're juggling career and kids, etc. Let me take the dog off your hands. I'll get that off your to-do list. I've got this. Now you're going to shift that a little bit to talking about, as Gina said, we're all in this together. We've never been up against before, but the dog still needs help, right? You're tying it back again. The dog still, and really kind of pushing that piece about what it means to live with a calm, easy dog, especially in a time of stress and challenge, and all of the extra pressures that we're under. And here's what you can do to make life a little bit easier while we're all in this situation together. And so that's it's still a lot of the same sort of bit about making life with dogs easier, but it's about making life with dogs easier under the current pressures that we're under.
Sorry, just you've got questions. They're asking about follow-ups for marketing, whether we'll do a marketing webinar, where can they find more marketing ideas from us?
We're chatting about that on Monday morning, and so we will keep you apprised of that. Yeah, I think there are a number of things that we need to kind of take a deeper dive into together, and I think that's definitely a critical one. We're also, well, actually, Gina, I know you're going to speak to some of the other things that we're
yeah, I was just going to say, we'll talk about it at the end, but also remember to keep watching your 2 Feet Forward newsletter, because there are always good tips in there. And also be watching your inbox for bulletins that you might get in between. Usually we may do more frequent emailing during this time to help you through kind of navigate these waters. So keep an eye out on your inbox for more on that. On the topic of marketing, let's talk a little bit about, we've talked about staying in contact with clients. Let's talk about staying in contact with the referral sources.
Yeah, I was mentioning that briefly earlier. I think that that's such a critical piece because, again, it's all about relationships, right? So you'll want to make sure that, you think about where your referrals generally come from. They may come from fellow dog walkers, dog trainers, pet supply stores, vet clinics. Who do you already have relationships with? Don't let those drop during this time. In fact, this is a time to strengthen them. What can you do for them? What can you do for their clients? because everyone's going to be under additional pressure to find new ways to serve. So making sure that you're really reaching out and asking what you can do for them. Just as an example, so if you are going to do some of these enrichment things, and you're going to be sharing, let's say, once a week, you're putting out here's my favorite, and one of my favorite enrichment toys, sorts of things. Talk to the folks at the local pet supply stores. Pet supply stores are staying open even in shelter-in-place mandated Bay Area, and tell them what you're going to feature. And say, hey, this is what I'm thinking about featuring next week. Do you have stock? Can I send my clients to you to pick this up? Just thinking about what you can do for them, just the same way we've always taught, right? I mean, one of the main ways of building referral sources is to do for others, to form relationships that then come back to reciprocate for you. This is such an important time to be doing that.
Erica had a good question that kind of relates to all of the marketing. What if they're doing some projects that require them to mail things to people in the mail or drop them off? And will our clients be concerned about that, since the virus can live on surfaces for some time? You want to speak to that, or you want me to take that one?
Either way, I mean, the first thought that comes to my mind, and then I'm sure you will have probably more insightful thoughts than you always do. The first thought that comes to my mind is that in this time period of social distancing, I don't know if you've heard, but one of the companies that is adding jobs is Amazon, because everybody's ordering through the mail, because that is so much safer than going out and purchasing in person. Now, again, outside of our wheelhouse and expertise to make statements about how long a virus lives on a surface, et cetera, but that is probably far safer than in-person interactions and purchases and that sort of thing. I think also one of the things that you can certainly do and communicate to your clients that you are doing is that you are using really careful sanitation measures when you put these things together. You're, wearing gloves and things like, whatever kind of recommendations the CDC has for handling materials while you're putting the packages together. You can wipe the outside of them with sanitation wipes. And I'm not saying to do that because I have some kind of scientific insight that that's how you're supposed to kill germs on the outside of a package. Again, I'm not able to speak to that, but I have to be aware of that. Oh, that is.
Yeah, interesting. So yeah, and
that is new news.
That Amazon is only shipping out essentials. That is new news to me too. That must be really recent. And what I was going to say, Erica, was I would contact my clients before sending anything and ask about their comfort level with it. Yeah. The UPS just sent out, here's what we, just kind of what Veronica said. Here's what we do, and why, why we think it's safer for you. But I would contact your clients and find out if that's something that they would be willing to do. And maybe we all need to check and see if Amazon has made this big change. Let's see if there's some new studies or some new information out there that we haven't heard about yet.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, that's not something I've heard about. So yeah, it looks like there's a bit of conflicting information. So we'll have to sort of see how that evolves over the next couple of days. And, and I think that's just, this is part of our new normal, is this constant influx of new information and changes and whatnot.
By the time we have it all figured out, someone throws another ripple in it. So that's just how life is going to be changing quickly and information changing quickly these days, I think.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So
not allowing third-party sellers to ship. Okay. So we'll have to look on that. And like I said, follow the Facebook page. If we get some more information directly from Amazon, then we'll post it and let you know what we hear.
Yeah. Thank you for that link, Linda. We'll take a look at that.
Great. All right, let's get back to covered everything we wanted to cover in marketing. We have a couple of questions that came in that we missed on pricing and price increases. We have somebody who was scheduled to do a price increase in April and wants to know if they should still consider doing that.
I would not at this time.
I agree.
Yeah, and that is probably maybe the second time in 17 years I have said that. Generally, I am pro price increase. You go for it. But I think right now it probably is not the time.
No, I agree. I agree. Just a final word on marketing. Again, just remember, you're creating communities out there. You're working with your communities. You're supporting your communities. Stay in conversation. Somebody, sorry, I can't remember who, mentioned that they stay in communication with their clients frequently through text. And so he's like, oh, I could send frequent text messages, just checking in. How are you doing? Or sending, enrichment ideas, once a week, or just enough to just keep in contact, remind clients that you're there, remind them that you're their trusted dog professional just by being there. So that's something for marketing. Anything else for you?
Yeah, just a couple of quick things that have come into the that there's a follow-up on the price increase question, saying that clients had already been notified.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Yeah, that's a hard one. In that case, what you might do is go ahead and go through with that for any clients who have not been financially impacted by the crisis, but basically to put out, hey, a reminder that prices are going up, as we had planned, but if you have seen an impact on your income, due to the virus situation, please let me know, and we'll suspend that increase for the time being. I think you could do something like that just to show that kind of sensitivity. We're all in this together, right? Again, that mindset might be one way to handle that.
And if the price increase wasn't implemented yet, there's some suggestion about maybe holding off and letting people know why you're holding off.
Yes. To say that we were about to do that, but given the situation, and then that way, again, just another way of letting clients know that you're watching out for them. We had a question, I think it was a marketing question about organizing a poop cleanup day at the park. Generally, I love that sort of a marketing idea. I think now I really think twice about that, because again, everything we do, each of us individually, no matter where we live, we want to be thinking about following both local and national guidelines about social distancing and doing everything we each individually can to avoid the spread of disease. And so I wouldn't do things that right now that involved any kind of a social or group aspect.
And Kelly wanted to know if you're suggesting charging for the enrichment ideas or just offering them out of goodwill.
So what I'm suggesting is that you provide these services to your clients as an alternative to your usual walking services, right? Definitely in areas where shelter in place is mandated, and to even be thinking about it in other areas. And that if you do that, that you would ask clients who have not been financially hit by the crisis to continue paying as they do for your regular service, that you would give clients who have had some impact the ability to pay less, to pay what they can, and that for clients who have lost their jobs, that sort of thing, who are really under financial hardship for this, that if you are able to continue to offer the service for them at no fee, that you do that.
And we've had a couple people ask about how to help their employees. I'll let you speak to that for just a minute, and I'm also going to put some resources for that in the chat pod.
So in terms of employees, so first of all, I just want to say, Gina and I are not human resources experts. And so this isn't something that we can speak to in a lot of detail, and it's not something that we can give really specific advice about. Gina's going to put in some HR resources where you can get better, more useful answers than the one I just gave you. But one thing to be thinking, one thing you might look into, again, I would talk to an HR person and or to your CPA about this. But one thing to consider is laying your staff off so that they are able to access unemployment benefits. And then also kind of in sort of the vein of the things we've been talking about, stay in contact with them, maintain your relationships, check in with them. How are you doing, etc. Just maintain those relationships so that they're more likely to come back as well. And then, for those of you who have staff, if to the extent that you're able to roll out some of these alternative service ideas and keep some revenue coming in, do what you can to maintain what hours you can for your staff. That's a possibility as well.
And I just put in the chat pod before it all goes away on me. If you're in California, I put the Employment and Development Department from the state of California. I put their website in because it has a lot of great resources for Californians in particular. I started to do some human resources research for all of you. And what I've discovered is, wow, every state is different. In California, you're different than everybody. So you have special considerations when you're talking about HR issues. So get help from the experts in HR. That's one really great website with some good information for you specifically. There's also the Society for Human Resource Management. That is a great nonprofit, just an informational site. Someone asked about getting some of these links after the web seminar. We have put together a link sheet for you. We'll get that to you. And one of the links on there, make myself a note, I believe that there's going to be an HR, there's an organization that's going to be putting on a human resources free webinar for Californians. So I'll get that added to that as well for you.
And some of you are asking about independent contractors. They are going to be, they'll have to pursue resources as self-employed people, as opposed to as employees. And so that's yeah. And if someone was asking, could you just do something for them? If you have the resources, absolutely you can. But in terms of layoff or things like that those same things don't unfortunately apply to them because they are technically self-employed. Somebody, the 2 Feet Forward sign up link, I'm putting that in there now.
Oh, the 2 Feet Forward. Okay.
Yeah, and that typically that e-newsletter goes out every other month, but we're actually going to be using that mailing list to be sending out much more regular, tips and bits of advice and ideas and things like that. So I do encourage you to get signed up for that if you aren't already. And then I think, Gina, there's a question about by email or Facebook, how we're going to get the links that you were mentioning, the resource document you've put together.
Yes, so I can put the resource document in the DWA grad group. I can post that there. We will also figure out a way, probably we'll do a follow-up to the webinar via email, but it will be next week before I get it out probably to you. And we'll send it that way as well.
Yeah. And Simone, your question about shelter, you're under shelter in place down in Santa Cruz as well, and the idea about putting out invoices next month. I mean, again, it's the same thing I've been saying. You're going to offer clients some alternative services, and then ask those who can, who are financially able to support you. By continuing to pay for those services. So when you send invoices out, you're basically sending a note saying, for those of you who can, right? And that for anyone who isn't able to, you're going to continue to offer these alternative services for them anyway, because again, we're all, the message of your invoices, we're all in this together. So you're going to surround that with a little bit of additional language as opposed to just sending it out the way you normally would.
And I just put in the chat pod a link to the U.S. Small Business Administration. For those of you who do have your own businesses, your independent contractors, take a look there because there are SBA's economic injury disaster loans. And at that specific link, there's information for how to apply for those loans, counselors who can help you in the application process. There's a phone number even. You might actually get a human. But those loans are specifically designed for very small businesses. They're low interest loans that can be stretched out over a long period of time. So for those of you who are just needing some interim help, that might be one really good place for you to start. Also encourage you to keep an eye out locally. Keep an eye out on your city websites and your local chamber of commerce, because you'll sometimes find that there'll be some relief locally that pops up. It's a little early for that, so don't get discouraged. It may take a few weeks for companies and organizations to get those programs set up, but I expect we're going to see more of them. Do keep in mind to take advantage of any kind of relief effort. There's some information that you need to make sure you're keeping right now, and that is to track your losses, meaning that when clients cancel or when you have to cancel clients, that you are tracking the name of the client, the date that the service was supposed to happen, what that service was, what you were charging for that service, and the reason for cancellation. As much information as you can. Make sure you're collecting that spreadsheet, whatever's handy for you, so that if we do start to see some national disaster relief funds coming available, you're more likely to be able to be eligible for that. So do keep that in mind as well. Someone mentioned that the IRS is extending filing deadline for 90 days. Encourage you to check with your CPA because that's talking about your federal taxes. Some states may extend as well. Other states maybe not. So definitely talk to your CPA and just find out what your options are about filing for taxes right now. That's going to be different depending on where you are. Someone says in Canada, search for emergency support benefit. So if you're in Canada, that might be another method of relief for you.
Yeah. And Michael's saying, and I think this is correct, but again, you'll want to double check IRS website or consult with your CPA, but the extension is for the payment of taxes, not filing. I think we're still expecting the paperwork April 15th, so be careful.
As much as we would all like to put those taxes off a little more. Someone also asked again, would there be a replay of this? Yes, we will get you a link. And that just actually made me think, the link that you'll be getting is a YouTube link. I'll put some of these links that we're putting in the chat group. I'll put that in the YouTube document. So those of you who don't have access to the grad group can access it a little more quickly.
And then you're also we're also posting information on the General Dog Walking Academy page, and so
that's where the link will be. Yes.
Yeah, and you don't have to be a grad to access that page.
No, it's just the Dog Walking Academy. If you search for that on Facebook, you'll find it. Sorry, I was talking and missed out. What's happening in the chat pod. You guys are quick. Has anyone had a dog walker test positive? I have not heard of any dog walkers, so I can't speak to that. I don't know about you, Veronica.
I haven't either. Okay. Yeah, and I hope that remains the case.
Right. I just want to take a look through my resources list to see if there was anything else here that I want to make sure to mention tonight. The CDC also, I think we posted some their general guidelines around the virus. They also have health resources for benefits, for businesses there. So for those of you who want to know specifically, what you should be doing to clean or things like that, there's a page for that for you on the CDC website. So check them out.
Also, a number of you have asked questions, some in the chat and some that I've received by email that are really specific to questions about dogs, about what we should do in terms of wiping down their fur. Can they get the disease? Just all sorts of different things like that. I would refer you to CDC, World Health Organization, and the American Veterinary Medical Association for answers to that. we are not medical or scientifically trained to provide those kinds of answers. And some of, as with so much, a lot of that, the answers to that have been changing. And so it's just best, I think, to keep an eye on those resources because they have the most up-to-date and authoritative information about that. Yeah. And also toward that end too, your clients are probably asking you these questions. You should give them the same answer I just gave you, right? Stay in your wheelhouse. Don't put yourself either in the responsibility or put yourself out there to be answering these kinds of questions that really should be answered by science and medical professionals and whatnot. So it's much, much better, please, to tell your clients where to go get the most up-to-date information about that rather than being responsible for answering those questions directly.
Yeah, and one other, because there's been some talk in the chat pod, one other resource I want you to have, I'll post it in here in just a second, is the National Federation of Independent Businesses. NFIB is how you would search for it. They have live updates on where the bills are in Congress, what's been approved, not approved. So again, that disaster relief that might be coming down the pike, this is probably a good website that will be following that for small businesses. So keep an eye out there. They also give updates on disaster loans. And they also have some resources for those of you who are employers and, again, communicating with employees, or if you have employees who get sick with coronavirus, they've got some resources and some guidelines there for that. So I'm going to just put that in the chat now too.
Great. And that's on the resources.
On the resources sheet.
Okay, great. Okay, fantastic. All right, so anything else that we had on our list to cover before we start wrapping up here, Gina?
That, I think we have hit all of the highlights off of our list. We'll give everyone just a second for any last questions to pop in maybe before we wrap things up. Okay.
And Josh, I saw you just turned your camera on. Did you have some questions you wanted to make sure we hit?
We have a couple that people have put in earlier in the chat that I just want to make sure that we get to. So one person is asking, so they bill at the end of the month. Is it tacky to give my clients two totals, one for half month and one for the whole month, and let them choose?
I don't think it's tacky at all. I think it's an excellent strategy. As I was saying earlier, right, that you're saying to clients, please do what you can, right? We're all in this together. Do what you can. I want to be here for you when this is over. And I want to do for you too. So if you are experiencing financial hardship, I want to make it easier for you. And so, yeah, I think you can absolutely do that.
Fantastic. So another question, this is someone that is probably not in lockdown quite yet. So they're saying they're struggling with clients who are working from home, adhering to social distancing. Any advice about getting clients on the same page to keep myself and workers safe?
Yeah, so communicate really explicitly in detail what you want clients to do when you come to pick the dog up. And I want you to communicate this multiple times. I want you to put it out in an email to your clients, and then put out a reminder to them. If you are in the habit of texting with clients, you might text your clients just as you're reaching the house to say, I'm about to come in. I want to remind you what I need you to do. Be really explicit, and then don't make the mistake that we always make, which is to think that saying something once means people have it. You want to be repetitive. Set them up for success. So I think that just kind of. I think one of the mistakes that is going to happen right now is that we all sort of think that we're on the same page about even what social distancing means. And so that's why I'm saying be extremely explicit. Ask them, to please go into another part of the house. It's just whatever it is you want them to do. But I think that's the biggest piece is just let the dog come to me at the door. I'll shout out a hello, but please stay in another part of the house, right? And communicate to clients why you're doing this. Make sure that the messaging is really good. You don't want to sound paranoid. You don't want to sound like you're afraid you're going to catch something from them. You don't, what you're saying is, I am doing my part to keep you safe. Here's what I need you to do to help me do that. Okay, so the messaging, how you say that, how you frame it really matters too.
When we want our clients to adhere to our policies, it's best if they know why. They're more likely to do it if they know why. And then along with that, communicating more than one time, because absolutely more than one time, I would say, and in more than one way. So if you send out an email, you have an email communication. If you happen to be doing your billing, put it on the billing. If you have the ability, I don't know, some of you may have the ability to either send a blind CC, but do a group email. Remind that. If you can text them ahead of time, say this is our first walk with the new policy. Just a reminder. Remind them that way. Just often remind them often, frequently, in as many different ways as you can.
And then enforce the heck out of it, right? Generally, as positive reinforcement folks, we tend to be a little conflict avoidant. This is one of those situations where you need to stand up for yourself. And so that if you do everything we've just explained, and then you get to the house and the client's there, you're going to say, I'm going to step back outside. I need you to go to another part of the house, and then I'll come in and get the dog. You need to absolutely stand your ground about this.
And if you have employees, make sure they have that language too. Give them the language you want them to use if someone isn't complying.
Yeah, and if you think they'll be uncomfortable doing that, let them blame it on you, right? Tell them, tell them that, Gina says I have to step outside until you've gone to another part of the house. And then make sure your employees tell you if they had to do that, so that you can call or email or text the client afterward to say, hey, Veronica let me know that she enforced a such and so policy today. I just want to reiterate, we're doing that for your safety, et cetera. So just to make sure that you're able to then reinforce it and also smooth over any ruffled feathers.
Awesome. Another one, how should we be concerned with liability in regards to, being in places where city restrictions may be somewhat vague?
Again, sorry, go ahead, Gina.
I was just going to ask for a clarification on the question. When you say liability, do you mean that are you worried about being ticketed, or you were?
That's what I'm interpreting from it. So,
okay.
So how is there legal liability? Should we be carrying the virus and pass it off to someone when the city otherwise said differently?
Okay.
So if you are in an area where the mandate is to shelter in place, you got to shelter in place, right? I mean, that's, you're right. So if you're in an area, I can't answer that question. I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not in charge of enforcement. So I don't know how to answer that question. I think I would toss it back to say, please act in, with the highest regard to ethics and concern for your community as you possibly can.
And I would say not only can Veronica not answer that question, but none of this has been tested. So nobody really knows legally what that's going to look like. So yeah, I'm not sure that answer exists right now.
So it's a very good point.
And that looks like it's the questions I have written down. If anyone feels like their questions weren't answered, please type them into the chat box now.
Looks like we're winding down. So I will close by just saying we are here to continue supporting you. I want to give you a few resources for that to watch from us specifically. We've mentioned many of these tonight, but look for the recording. We'll announce it on the Facebook page, the Dog Walking Academy Facebook page, when the recording is ready, and you'll be able to pop over to the YouTube channel. It's the Dog Biz YouTube channel is where that recording will live. And again, I will take Anything that I put in the chat pod tonight for resources, I will paste that into YouTube so you have that there as well. I've also created a sheet for you for those who are grads, and I'll put that in the grad group. So if you don't follow the Dog Walking Academy Facebook page, make sure you go and like it and follow it so that you can stay a part of our conversation. We will also, again, we will keep you up to date with what resources we're coming out with for you there. We can, we're still planning the different ways that we can support you. Also, let us know either on the Facebook page or by emailing us at info@dogbizsuccess.com and letting us know as your needs change what we can do for you so that we can continue to offer that support. 2 feet forward, you can sign up for that newsletter on our website. It's in the footer of all of our websites. I'll also include a link to the sign up page for that. If you don't get that, that is great for more in-depth tips, and we'll be hitting some of these topics like marketing, I'm sure, in upcoming issues. I believe that's all. If we can, be of help, please reach out, let us know, email the office and let us know how we can help you out. I want to thank you all for being here and for being so committed to the well-being of the dogs and the clients that are in your care and in your communities. Again, know that Dog Biz will continue to offer our support to dog pros throughout this crisis. And we really hope that you and your businesses stay healthy.
Take care, everyone.